All right, in this episode, I'm going to give you a crash course in leading a group. Now, this is a topic we could talk forever about, and we'll try to bring in additional thought leaders into this conversation, bring you some additional resources. We try to do that anyway on an ongoing basis, but this is going to be your crash course, and something, keep in mind, you're going to perfect over the next months and years. You will get a lot better at this, but going into it, here's what you need to know. Number one is it is different than a traditional way of communicating. Now, traditional communication is kind of a one-to-many approach, meaning, and it's somewhat the megaphone approach, right? Where, hey, we have a something we want to communicate. We've got a megaphone, television, radio, and we're just going to basically broadcast it out to many people who are listening. Now, here's the power and the strength and the beauty of a group and a community is it's many to many. So it's a totally different type of way of communicating and thinking. And if you try to approach it like a one-to-many strategy, it's not going to work very well. You have to totally start to change your mindset when you're talking about a many-to-many strategy. One of the key differences is you're just not crafting one communication thing, one thing that you're trying to get across and telling it to everybody. No, you're really more of a facilitator or a steward of the conversation. So part of your goal is how do you facilitate an ongoing conversation around whatever it is that you're trying to converse around or whatever your objectives are, which we'll talk about that here in just a second. So that is a big mindset shift. Secondly, you definitely want to develop out a team and develop leaders. This is huge with any sort of marketing communication. We talk about this all the time is don't be that lid where you cap and your leadership caps your church's ability to grow. Same thing with a group is if you can develop out moderators, facilitators, administrators, leaders, it is going to go much better for you and be way more powerful for your church. It's also a great little lab to develop leaders. So you can, people who are up and coming, you can give them a little bit of a platform in which to experiment and develop their leadership. So maybe they're not ready for the stage at your church, but they can start doing Facebook Lives into your group. It is a somewhat of a leadership lab, but don't go it alone. You will feel like, man, I am stretched way too thin if you're the one that's trying to do everything and control and manage and keep the group under control. That's really not even the best word, controlling a community, as much as it is facilitating, building a team of facilitators. Think about like round tables, small group discussions. People who are leading discussions is really what you want. So you want that, and you could capitalize on some of the leadership structure that's already at your church, some of the small group leaders, some of the people who are already approved for leadership. You can slide into those roles inside a church group as well. And number three, when it comes to leading a group, remember, your job is to develop and protect the culture. What makes a great community is a great culture. When people understand, hey, this is how our group operates, this is what this group is here for, and there's this vibrant relationship, communication, conversation going back and forth, that is awesome. So one of your main roles is to protect that. So when you see something fighting against that, you know, hey, if I'm going to lead this, I've got to protect the culture. I've got to develop the culture. What do we want this group to be all about? What are the kind of the key values? Is this a place of encouragement, or is this more of an iron sharpen iron? We're okay with debating back and forth. Whatever your culture is, your job as a leader is to develop that culture and protect that culture with all you've got. And then number four is steward the conversation. So you're always going to make sure that the conversation is alive and active and going on. There's that relationship and conversation building happening within your group, and you are helping lead the way. That doesn't mean you're always the one posting or you're always the one controlling it, as much as it means that you're stewarding that conversation. So maybe it means having someone else that initiates a conversation. Maybe it means when somebody posts a topic that you are tagging other people that are experts in that and connecting the dots. Your role as a leader, a lot of it in a community, will be stewarding the conversations and stewarding the connections and relationship connections happening within the group. And then number five, and not probably last, because it's really, really important, it's this, is determine your objectives. What are you trying to accomplish with the group? Here's my recommendation on this, is that your Facebook group, if you're going one kind of church-wide group, should not have a different vision and mission than your church. It really should be one in the same. So what are you trying to do as a church, especially if it's like, hey, what are we trying to do internally? Well, we're trying to build disciples. What are you trying to do with this sermon series that you're in now? Really, your group is a way to carry on that conversation and that objective throughout the week, where you've got maybe your weekend services. That's awesome. You've got everybody together for an hour, maybe 2 hours. Now, how do we keep that conversation active and going and progressing throughout the week? Well, that's a great place for your Facebook group. So don't get sideways energy where you're always thinking, what does this group have to do? Or I have to come up with something in the group. No, time out. What are you doing as a church right now in this season, in this series? What is the objective as the church? And I would just have the group mirror that and just be simply a tool to keep developing that throughout the week. So just to recap, when it comes to leading a group crash course, number one, you have to think a different mindset, not one to many, but many to many. Number two, you're going to want to develop teams, moderators, and leaders, administrators who can help keep the community vibrant and alive and protect the culture. Number three, what I just talked about is your job as a leader is to develop and protect that culture, really fan the flames of what you really want to see, and you've got to extinguish those that you don't want to see. Pull those weeds out. Number four, you are a steward of the conversation, not always leading it, but more stewarding conversations and connections in the group. And number five is determine the objectives and make sure that that is aligning from your church and into your group as well. There you go. That is your crash course. 5 things to keep in mind as you're leading a group. You will get better with this over time. And part of it is you don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get going. So that's going to wrap this episode. We'll see you in the next one.